The Last Skywalker. I mean, Rise of the Skywalker. I'm getting these things mixed up now. Rise of the Skywalker, and then I guess the whole trilogy or Star Wars as a whole and everything.
See, I thought it would be kind of funny to talk about Bad Boys too, because not the movie Bad Boys, too, but it's a trilogy. Well, actually, it's a trilogy as well. And
that's true.
That's
true. Bad Boys. Yeah, that's true. We could do that.
So
I'm down. I'm guessing you really like Bad Boys.
Yeah, I did actually. I really did like it.
Me too. I agree with you.
It's by far the best Bad Boys.
Best one.
Let's not
talk too much about it right now because I want to save some I want to save some meat for the dinner.
I hate you. It sounds so bad.
Of course, it's us.
So yeah, we're terrible.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the year 2020.
No, wait, I'm sorry.
No, that was good. That was good, actually. This is the 8BG. I'm Steve with
Ling, Major,
and
whatever I am.
We are the 8BG.
8-bit generation.
8-bit generation, for those who don't know. And welcome to our first podcast of the year.
Yeah, we're going to try to do more podcasts.
Anyway, we're going to get the ball rolling. This is our January. All right, so let's start this podcast off by doing what we usually do. What have you been playing?
You go first.
I've been playing a couple of games. I was playing this game called Dandara for the Switch, and I actually beat it not too long ago.
What? You beat a game?
Can you believe it? I'm just that surprised. It's a Metroidvania style game that has some interesting mechanics in terms of moving. Like, instead of doing the usual walk across the platforms and jump and all that kind of stuff, you kind of zigzag across the stage on predetermined paths. Usually they're white and they're kind of stuck against the wall.
So you play the black girl?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one.
That's the
with
only
the afro.
That's the only reason. That's the only thing I could remember about seeing that game. It looked interesting. Yeah,
it was actually interesting. I mean, the game was all right. I think I felt like it could have been better, because I felt like they could have added a little bit more, some more weapons and things like that. When you play Metroid, part of the exploration is kind of getting better and getting stronger. And in the game, you do level up, but I feel like when you level up, it's just mostly getting more life or more ways to get more energy to use your special weapons. Not weapons, but I guess special techniques. Mm-hmm. Which are there, but they never feel like you get techniques to destroy enemies as the game progresses, but I feel like they're kind of backloaded towards the end, and then by the time you really get used to them, you don't really feel a need for them.
Right.
I would say Nintendo games have a really good way of giving you something, and then makes it useful throughout the whole. What game should I use? Metroid, of course. You can get an item and then you start using it and you feel like it's being used for a good while before the end. But I feel like with Dandara, a lot of stuff that they have, especially the special power-ups towards the end, was kind of all right, this is the back half of the game is kind of over at this point. But it's not a bad game. I just think it could have been better. But I'd recommend it. If you're interested, I'd recommend at least playing a little bit of it if you see it on sale. I think the game goes on sale pretty often. All right, what else? This is going to be funny. I actually played 50 Cent Blood on the Sand.
Oh, that's the second one, right?
That's the second one, yeah. The first one was Get Rich or Die Trying.
No, it's Bulletproof, I think.
So, you know what? Anything with 50 Cent, I'm always associating with that title for some reason.
Yeah, that was the best. That was his movie. And
that was his movie. That was his record. I was even telling myself, don't call this Get Rich or Die Trying. And then I ended up calling Bulletproof that. Yeah. But because you're right. The first one was Bulletproof, and then the second one was Blood on the Sand. And it's the one that plays a little bit more like Gears of War. It's okay. It's not bad.
Why? Why? How are you playing this, and why are you playing this?
All right, so I'm playing it through the Xbox 360, of course, and the reason why I'm playing it is because, as you know, this month is Black History Month.
You have Xbox One?
Yeah, I have Xbox One, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I'd rather play it on my 360. I think I told you this a while ago, but I ended up buying a hard drive for my 360 to save all my games in there.
No, you didn't.
Just do that. But yeah, 50 Cent Blood and Sand. I think that game would be fun if you had a second player. If me and you play that game, I think it would be hilarious.
And stream it. Which is
stream it. It's one of those fun games. I played it single player. It's cool. I don't think it's terrible.
Just
It's
bring your
like
Xbox over.
get a couple of drinks and stream Blood on the Sand. I think it's gonna be a good time. So we can do that. And then the next game I'm playing, Mafia 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really like that game. It's really solid in terms of its presentation. It's open world, kind of like Grand Theft Auto. It feels so detailed. The game takes place in a fictional New Orleans called I believe New Bordeaux or something like that. And you play a story of I believe he's like half Dominican or half black, or maybe he's Afro Dominican. I can't recall. He loses his family to the mob, so now he's out. It's like becomes a revenge story. And like I said, the presentation and everything is top notch. It's fun to play. I just haven't had time to finish it, but it's actually a pretty dope game because while you're playing the game, they kind of treat it like a documentary. Like how sometimes you watch a documentary and they kind of splice to certain people as in the interview portion. They kind of splice towards it. That's what you get a lot in the game. Like you'll be playing a level, and then as a transition, they'll just splice to like the future. And they'll talk about certain situations that happen, and I found that actually pretty cool. That's what I've been playing.
What have I been playing? I haven't been playing anything really new. Like I still play Apex Legends, which is still fun. I've been on a game buying. I've been buying a lot of games, just not playing them. Like,
welcome to my world.
Yeah, I mean, on PC they're like right here. I can just play them, but like I don't know. So I bought. I haven't played a lot of it. Actually, I might have played like 20 minutes of it. But I bought which most people are calling like the best RPG on PC for the longest time. If you look at like its meta scores, it's all like 9.5s and stuff. Ooh. And the last time I bought a game like that was The Witcher, and it's one of the best games I've ever played. So this game was called Divinity Original Sin 2, and I've never heard of the series or anything. And I think it's kind of it's one of those PC RPGs where you have like a million different hotkeys at the bottom, and like kind of like I don't know, like it's not like my typical kind of RPG, which The Witcher wasn't either. So I saw that and I was immediately like kind of put off by it. But those, I really believe games don't get review scores like that. I think it's something you have to give it time to get into.
Why do you say that for?
Because, I hate to be a person that just like relies on review scores, but too many places I've read that how good this game is. I'm going to give that a better shot in the future. I stopped playing Overwatch. I don't know if I talked about Borderlands 3 last time we did the podcast.
I don't recall.
So I bought Borderlands 3. It's very weird because it's Borderlands, right? It's obviously a sequel to Borderlands 2, but I feel like it's missing something that Borderlands 2 had, which Borderlands 2 was kind of crazy, like really crazy, and kind of like silly, but something about, I think at the time it was kind of refreshing maybe at the time, whereas now these kind of games with this over the top personality you can kind of find them like everywhere. And the villain this time around, seem like they would have been really good at in 2016. Like they're like these media obsessed like twins. So like when they do something crazy evil, they like stream it for their followers, and you know what I'm saying?
Oh, look, a mirror of society.
It's kind of corny. It's a little corny, and some of the Borderland humor is very, very hit or miss. The gameplay is that's probably the best improvement compared to Borderlands 2 is the gunplay. Like the characters have weight to them. They run, they slide, they climb. So at least in terms of the shooting, it feels good. The guns so far, there are a lot of guns in the game, but a lot of them are like, you'll find a couple of cool ones and you'll stick to those. The gun, what it says, the advertisement says like it's like 1 billion guns, but like in reality, probably 999 million of them like are very similar.
Have the same base. I hate when they do stuff like that.
Yeah,
technically you're probably right, but then realistically, when it comes down to it,
because I think when they call 1 billion guns, like these guns are like, I think most of these they're like procedurally generated. I feel like they just like they'll just create new ones as you go. And each one, I think the gun level. So if you find one at level 10, there might be a similar one at like level 11. And they might count that as a completely new gun. Some of the guns are cool. They do silly things like grow legs. Sometimes become turrets. It's weird, but it's more Borderlands. And if you really like Borderlands, you'll probably like it. But I feel like the game, I don't know, Borderlands 2 came out in 2012, and I think, or something like that. And so for Borderlands 3 coming out in 2019,
It's 7 years too late, pretty much.
it's just, whatever it came out, it just feels like it, to me, didn't do as much as it probably could have. Like, it doesn't look like, but it doesn't look that much, better. Like, it doesn't look like, really doesn't even look that much next gen. Like, it does look better than 2, but it doesn't look. And I some of that's part of the art style, because it has that cell shaded art style. But I feel like they could have made it look a little better. I don't know.
I played a little bit of Borderlands 3, not a lot, just like
you have
maybe
it?
in total. I have it. Yeah, I probably played like 20 minutes of it.
I think you gotta give it some time, because you'll know, I think, really well, like, later on. Like, I put about 15, 20 hours in or something like that. And, which, if I put that much time in, partially it's because I'm playing it with somebody, but the other part is it's decent. There's some cool things in it. Like, I think I like that Borderlands energy it has. Like, it is kind of fun. And it's good. It's definitely a good game. It's just I don't know if I like care about it that much. And so the last game I'll talk about slightly is my favorite game, The Witcher 3. So the only reason I'm talking about it is obviously, yes, we know the Netflix show came out. I think it's one of those, critics are kind of rough with it, but fans, like, most of the audience loves it. It does have.
Talking about the game? Sorry, you're talking about the game?
No,
or
the show.
Okay.
But what it did is it definitely kind of brought a resurgence back into the game. And the game and the show comes from the books, and the game kind of comes from the books, but tries to advance. Like, it goes past the books, where I think, or at least it's in between some of the books. I don't know, but the show tries to tell, like, the one of the books called The Last Wish or whatever. That's what the show is. So besides some similar characters and elements, there's not really like anything common. You know what I mean? Like, story wise, at least. So I really enjoyed the show. So it did make me want to pick up the game again. And every time I pick up that game, I'm just in awe at how masterful. How much detail and work that the people really put in the game into just the littlest, most mundane quest. So I picked it up and I was just gonna wander around. Like, I still have like one DLC left to do, but I was just gonna be like, let me see what happens. And I wander into somebody that said he owed me some money and that he put it in a bank. So I went to the bank to go get it, and the bank records said I was dead. And so that they couldn't give me my money. So they said I need to go fill out like a form 52B, right? And so I had to walk to another kiosk and ask for a form 52B. But to get that, I needed a form A32A. So I had to go and ask somebody else about this form. Then they sent me back to the first kiosk, and you can tell like the character's getting irritated because he's just being sent around. So, you see a bunch of people waiting online, but you just walk right through the door. So when you come out the door, someone's really mad that you cut the line. And so he the security comes in and they're like, hey, if you got a problem with each other, take it outside. So we take it outside and we get to like this fist fight. Because usually, like, if you're fighting like a regular person, they make it a fist fight, right? So I beat this guy up. And he was kind of pet peeve, but he just let it go. So I walked back into the bank, and finally, like, my character decides to, like, well, one of the choices you can like, you sit down and wait for them to get your forms, right? And they go on lunch breaks, and so the funniest thing about the whole scenario is it really felt like a day you could actually have going to get something done, and it just taking way longer than it should. And, like, it was really not, like, an epic quest or anything. It was the most mundane task. But I'm, like, laughing the whole time through it because I think it's genius. I think, like, that experience in that game, and it's a random quest. Like,
Mm-hmm.
It's you know what I mean? Like, and it had
So you're pretty much doing taxes in video games.
right, but it had the effort and the right. Like, it was funny the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
The solution to it is genius, and the whole thing about it is, it shows how snaky banks can be at times. But the fact that I had to go from one line to the next, and then they lost
Mm-hmm.
this, and then there was a part when like the bank tellers are on break, and you're trying to get them, and they, and the way they talk, they say, "Oh God, these customers have no respect." Like, so I was just like, how see. And that to me is like the genius of that game. It's that kind of detail. Like the main story are great too, but like there are
Mm-hmm.
side quests in that game that have more character and story than some games do in general. Which I think is just a testament to how great that game is, and it's still some people's best game of this decade. And to me, I can't disagree. Anyway, so
That's definitely something I have to get back into.
I think you
have
should.
The Witcher, and I bought it like last year, but I played a little bit of it. I enjoyed it, but I
It's
just
huge, and
never fell through with it.
you have to. There will be a point
Mm-hmm.
where it hits you, and then you just can't stop playing. You have to hit that point.
All right, I think after, because also too, I want to watch. I also definitely want to talk about the show with you at some point.
Yeah,
so
you can watch.
I'm gonna watch the show and kind of get on the Hitcher train, the Witcher train,
Yeah,
and see discover this hype.
all right, but let's talk about the meat and potatoes because we're 20 minutes in. Kind of.
Yeah. Well, actually, before you talk about the meat and potatoes, I actually was curious to know how you felt about what recently happened with Kobe Bryant.
Oh yeah, well, that was really upsetting. As you know, I have a brother who played in the NBA who played against Kobe, and it's a really crazy thing, right? Like you can't imagine that happening to someone like that, like Kobe. You think you're just gonna see Kobe kind of until he gets old,
Yeah.
the fact that he died is it just shows how fragile your life really is and how you should really enjoy every minute you have because it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you do, what you're worth. You could die at any time. And I think that it was tragic, and it upset me a lot more than I thought it would. Because just because sometimes celebrities die all the time, people get crazy. Like normally it doesn't bother me. The only other celebrity that died that bothered me was Muhammad Ali. But I think part of the tragedy is the tragedy, right? His daughter, the other people on the plane, and this is Kobe. Kobe fucking Bryant. You just to me it's like that's like a person you just couldn't imagine that happening to. He's just retiring. That's what it is too. Like he had so much more left. I mean the guy, and he's the epitome of just hard work. I'm kind of glad like it's passing a little bit and people are kind of moving on because it was real rough that first few days. It was everything.
Yeah, I remember the day I found out. Like I was literally about to go running in the park, and then I got like a text message. Oh, it was part of like a group chat, but something came up on my screen that said, "Nah, Kobe, something is crazy," and I didn't see the dying part. I guess the part that said dying was like skipped my mind. I'm like, something happened to Kobe. As soon as I Googled it, I saw like the first headline. I don't even know where it came from, but it just said Kobe Bryant dead at 41, and literally I was stunned.
I was streaming when it happened.
I was stunned.
I was streaming, and one of the people watching my stream just was like, "Kobe's dead," and I'm like, I'm kind of like I'm thinking like Kobe beef. I'm thinking of like not Kobe Bryant, like no Kobe dead. That's how they put it, just Kobe dead. I said, wow. But yeah, let's not dwell too much on that. But
man, rest in peace, man. Like all I will say is that it's crazy because like you kind of said, I didn't expect it to, like I never would think because you never think something like that would happen to Kobe Bryant. But then when it happened, I was just like literally shocked. Like I was just like, man, it's
and it wasn't like awful. A self-inflicted thing. Some people go down a path and then it's a tragedy. Or, like Heath Ledger's tragic. I mean, I'm not saying he's the same level of fame, but it's tragic because he kind of accidentally killed himself, or he killed himself on purpose.
This is pretty much like out of his
But
hands.
this is like Kobe Bryant, yeah, like with his daughter, So that's just.
But I'll say one thing is that looking back at some old clips, because it kind of made me look, kind of reminisce a little bit, and I actually like just watch some old interviews, especially the ones after he retired. Man, I admire that man's work ethic, like even more now, especially as I'm getting older, and I kind of like look back and see, what he's accomplished. It definitely, serves as a reminder to never take every day that you have granted, and to use it to the best of your ability to be with the best version of yourself.
I think.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Man.
And I think, even though he wanted to do a lot more with his life, because after he retired, he created a movie. I know he had some projects going on and stuff like that.
He won an Oscar.
He won an Oscar or Academy Award, whatever it was.
Yeah, he won an Oscar.
Oscar. And I think, I think he had more to give to this world, but now that he's gone, I feel like, the best thing he can leave is to live your best life and work as hard as you can to pursue your dreams.
I say what I'll take from him the most is something that I want to instill in my life is he was fearless. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he took shots, bad shots, good shots, didn't care. Yeah, I mean, he could have been a little bit of a ball hog, but he didn't care. He didn't care. That's
part
the
of his
best
charm,
part.
honestly.
Right? He did not give a flying fuck, and I think that was one of the best things.
I know he's still watching the play.
Right? Just I'll shoot it from here. I don't care. So,
oh man,
yeah. All right, so now we're gonna get into the meat and potatoes, right?
All right, so meat and potatoes. So let's talk about Star Wars. With Rise of the Skywalker, I'll preface this by saying I hated The Last Jedi. I really hated that movie because, I really hated that movie. But I feel like Rise of the Skywalker wasn't as bad as that movie, but it kind of felt like you was watching, in my eyes, it felt like you was watching a writer like kind of like retcon everything that he didn't like about The Last Jedi, where they're like, oh, Luke did this, okay, let's have him do this to kind of erase that. Like, certain behaviors just felt like they existed only to kind of reverse the damage done by Last Jedi, and I see where they're going with it, but when it's done on film and everything's said and done, it kind of just feels like you're just trying to backtrack with everything that was going on. Instead of continuing a story, it just feels like you're just trying to do damage control for a lot of actions that occurred in the last movie. But it wasn't bad. I'd say the best thing I could say that wasn't bad. I think it was just watchable. I think bare minimum it was watchable, because the Rise of the Skywalker was a very beautiful movie. But with a budget like that, of course, it's not going to look, terrible. It's a very nice, good-looking movie. But at the end of it, after watching it, I didn't feel much at all. Even with certain reveals, like when, when Palpatine revealed himself to be Rey's grandfather.
Oh, spoilers.
Yes. This podcast has spoilers. But at this point, I'm pretty sure a lot of people anyway. But when it was revealed that Palpatine was Rey's grandfather, it was kind of interesting. But I feel like it's kind of like a little bit too late in a way, because that kind of stuff, those kind of questions that should have been answered in the last movie. You know what I mean? Like, instead of playing gotcha games, like whatever Ryan Johnson did in The Last Jedi, instead of playing these little gotcha games where every time you're trying to figure out something, it's always like either a trick or something that you don't expect, or it just becomes like you lose your ability to really care about what's going on, because too many times you're presented with something and it's not what it seems. Too many, and after a while, it's just like, why should I even care? Because most likely it's gonna be, you're gonna turn it on my head anyway. So I think because of that happening so much, the Rise of the Skywalker has suffered because it crammed had to cram so much into such a small time frame. Because I think that, I'm sure they wanted to make it more than 3 hours, but because it's a Star Wars movie and there's only so much they can do, they had to kind of cram like whatever ideas they have to scramble with, and they try to continue to continue the story. So in the beginning, it felt rushed. Later on, it didn't feel as rushed, but I feel like as a movie, it didn't really do anything to change my mind about the series. I feel like as a series as a whole, as a trilogy as a whole, they blundered the entire thing because number one, you introduce these new characters, Finn, Ray, Poe, and they barely spend time with each other. So the dynamics is not even there, really. They made us think Finn was the main character. And, it ends up being Ray's story. I think, when you watch the movie, you realize that Ray is the main character. But I think before that, when they were showing advertising, it was mostly Finn they were showing.
But there's nothing wrong with being a man. That doesn't mean like it's like Luke Skywalker's the main character, but he's not like. I don't think.
Well, I didn't mind that part. That part didn't bother me too much. I just think what they did with Finn's character the rest of the time. I feel like if I'm talking about the characters, I feel like Finn is probably one of the most useless characters in that whole trilogy because this guy really doesn't do anything. Most of the time he's always like screaming for Ray. Like Ray.
I think I disagree with that, but go ahead. I think I disagree with you there, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think he's pretty useless, and then at the end of Force Awakens, the guy gets knocked out, and for the rest of the movie, and then when he wakes up in The Last Jedi, he kind of becomes like kind of pointless. Because as soon as he does his little commie stick in the beginning, looking for Ray, Rose Tico ends up kind of like taking the lead on this stand. Like, like they introduce a character and she automatically kind of becomes like this headstrong person that he's following and whatnot. And, and in part 3, it kind of happens the same way again, where Rose Tico, that relationship he has with Rose Tico is almost non-existent, and he ends up finding somebody else to do the same thing again. And I'm just like, they really have nothing for this guy to do. And what's sad is that he should have a very interesting story. I mean, as a guy who was raised as a stormtrooper or a stormtrooper janitor or whatever you want to call it, or he did sanitation or whatever, he should be like he should be a little bit more interesting. They should have definitely delved in some of his background a little bit more, or do something with him that was interesting. But I really feel like they didn't really do anything with him. Poe, I feel like was kind of interesting, but again, it's like I feel like because he spent more time with like the crew and kind of arguing like with that pink haired lady in The Last Jedi. I really feel like you just don't really get to know these characters. You know what I mean? I feel like their dynamics, their personality doesn't shine compared to the original, where everyone had defined roles and they play off each other, and you can kind of see who they are, how they are, what they mean to each other and things like that. So I just feel like this trilogy messed up on a lot of things, especially of the way they treated the original the original 3. How they had them separated. And I know it's not really their fault because no one could predict Carrie Fisher's death. That was kind of unfortunate. But, they missed a great chance to kind of reunite them again on screen. And I think a lot of fans would have loved to see something like that. So that's kind of like my, brief overview of what I feel. But, I feel like that this trilogy overall has kind of blundered a lot of stuff. There's a lot more I want to say, but I guess we'll talk about it as we go on. But what did you think of the trilogy and the Rise of Skywalker?
I have to say that I actually disagree with a lot of things you said, but I am at the same point of where you are, that they fucked up this trilogy. But I think the issue with Star Wars, the new saga, whatever this new trilogy was, the sequel trilogy they call it. The biggest issue was they went into this movie. They called this a trilogy without having a trilogy planned. There was no way that there was an overarching. The last movie just proves that there's no way that from the first movie, they set something up that was going to pay off in the third movie. And granted, the original trilogy actually wasn't that way either. They didn't make, he made one movie that turned out to be real popular, and then they made 2 sequels. The prequel trilogy did go into it with an overall vision of what was going to happen. I think there's an absurd amount of people saying, oh, now the prequel trilogy is much better by comparison. And no, that's not true. Those movies are still not good. Okay, just because they had an overarching narrative and these 3 movies don't, I don't think that retroactively makes those movies better. I think
I don't.
I think it's just so. I think there's so much like internet hate out there for like anything that doesn't turn out to be the way you want it to be. So, which I think is really evident in how much people hate The Last Jedi. And
I mean, I was going to talk to you for 1 second. I think what a lot of, because I understand where you're coming from, where you're seeing people say that the first trilogy, I don't know, not the first trilogy, but what do you call that series? The one that came out in '99. I don't want to.
The prequel trilogy.
Prequel trilogy, yes. The prequel trilogy is better than this one.
People were saying that as a reaction to how much they hate.
I think a lot of people meant in terms of structure. I think people can appreciate the structure because I still think the prequel series kind of sucked too.
But people are starting to praise them a little more just because of this one. Like they're saying, hey, at least this movie had an overall. They always had that overall structure. That I'm not gonna retroactively praise it now because of something new that may not be made in a similar way. I'm not going to go back and say
I agree with you that. I think that, but I think people are just happy that to see, like, okay, there was a structure. At least they had a story, and they kind of followed through. I think that's the only point there.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. This prequel, this trilogy, you can tell by how different, like you said, one of the best things you said was that this was a reaction. This movie was a pure reaction to The Last Jedi, where everything was either retconned or I think you're sitting. I don't know if you're sitting too close to your computer or something. I hear my echo.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah, I don't know. So everything was pretty much in. Okay, let me talk about the Rise of Skywalker first. It's like you said. It's fine. It's like a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. You could tell there's a lot of. It looks pretty, special effects, but I think first, I think J.J. Abrams wrote it or whatever too, or something. It shows to me like it does not. It doesn't know what it's doing. It's trying to make a story to please everybody on planet Earth, and the thing it says is like, when you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody, and that's exactly how, like, to me, what I felt happened. There were so many elements of the story, like Palpatine returning. That was not that. There was nothing, and how Palpatine can make Snoke, and Palpatine. Everything was Palpatine. Always Palpatine. It's such a blatant lack of creativity to bring that back. And Rey, damn. Since the guy said she was not important.
Now you are important.
Well, now
you're part of Palpatine.
Yeah, you're Palpatine, and look at this. So that's we gotta tie it in. We gotta make, and it's so. I left that movie so sad because I was just like, I said this wasn't the worst movie, but I'll tell you something. I know you hate The Last Jedi, so I'm not trying to convince you otherwise, but I'm going by my initial reaction to The Last Jedi because I think a lot of times people too they'll feel some way about a movie, and then they'll go on the internet and see everyone hate it, and then it just that multiplies. I think sometimes, And I still feel like, and I haven't watched The Last Jedi since, so maybe, second watching might make me think differently, but I still remember leaving that movie, like, kind of, I was fine. I thought it was, I was thoroughly entertained. And I've watched some people, tear it apart, and I watched some people defend it. And one of the things that, you just talked about is how Last Jedi was just there to subvert expectations, and that's all it was doing. But I watched a really good video by someone called the Cosmonaut Variety Hour or something. I'll probably send it to you. But he talked about how he hated the movie, and then it grew on him. And what happens is, he said, like, part of the expectation, the thing about subverting expectations, and I'm positive, like, not all of them were done well, obviously, but I will tell you that I was more interested in where he was going with the characters than what they ended up doing with them. Because, and maybe not, let's not say like Finn and Poe, but I was definitely more interested where he was going with Rey and where he was going with Kylo Ren. Like, because to me, there was some kind of idea. First of all, I like the idea that to me, in his series, he established that Force users are all over the place, and that you just don't have to be a Skywalker or a Palpatine to be a strong Force wielder. So I kind of like that idea he was going with, and I kind of like the idea of, end the Jedi, end the Sith, create something new. Like, I think those were subversions of expectations that were crucial to the plot and that actually did something. Whereas, like, I'll tell you this, like, one of the moments in Rise of Skywalker where I thought the movie, not Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi, I think it would have been much more powerful if it ended. There's a scene after Rey and Kylo defeat Snoke and defeat all the bad guys. And he's like, let's start something new. Join me, please. And his hand is out there. And in my head, I was like, if the movie ended here, I'd be like, holy shit, you got me. Because I was kind of at a point where I was like, yeah, you know what? But then it went to the Salt Planet, and then to me, it fumbled at the end a little bit.
And I think that's the biggest issue. One of the biggest issues of this trilogy is like how, it doesn't get you hyped to see what happens next.
Right.
I'll say this: for, like, the Force Awakens, the way it ended was great because she goes on this planet, finds Luke Skywalker, and then you're like, okay,
it was a cliffhanger.
What's gonna happen next? It was a cliffhanger. Like, you now for the next 2 years or so,
you're waiting to see. Yeah, you're waiting to see.
You can speculate and then see what happens. Of course, they squandered it with the next movie, The Last Jedi, by having him do like this shtick where he gets his father's lightsaber and throws it off over his shoulder.
Well,
as like a gag.
And
it's just like,
I get it. I get some people, like, maybe. I also don't buy, like, people saying, oh, that's not Luke. Luke would never do that. Like, he's human, and people change. I never got this feeling like. Now, what I do think is that they didn't. The tone was all over the place, and I think that made it, like, sometimes some moments shouldn't have felt comedic, and they were, but they actually did that in all three movies. They try to be kind of funny in situations where I feel like they shouldn't be.
I felt like The Last Jedi was the movie that had the most, like, that tried to do, like, what I like to call, like, Family Guy humor more.
I think
than, other trilogies.
It wore the humor on its sleeve a little more than most.
Like when like in the beginning where Poe was like,
telling a joke, yeah,
can you hear me? Can you hear me now? And I was just like, yo, this is good. This joke is gonna be outdated in a couple of years. Like, why would they even do that? Well, I think they're patting themselves in the back, thinking that they were so clever and so funny, and at the end they were just really.
But here's the thing, though. When you go to when I saw it in the theater, and some people thought there were people laughing, so it hit with some people.
Laugh at it. I still think it's gonna be an outdated joke. I feel like it's
but you don't make them.
It's like, but you don't. It felt out of place for the style that Star Wars is always trying to achieve. But I feel like
it might have, but like the whole point is, like, if they laughed about it, if something, like, it's a joke, like, comedy is subjective, right? So some people find it funny, some people won't. Some people felt like it shouldn't have been there. Some people don't care. I just feel like The Last Jedi just gets, like, it was so not what people wanted that they're holding that against it. And I forgot they said
at the end of the day, it's a waste of time. Like, you watching the movie your story unfold, and then all it's doing is kind of bringing everything back to square one, where maybe
No,
the
it's
only thing that
not. No,
changes.
see, no, it's not bringing everything back to square one. It's changing. It's changing what you're expecting from it, and that's, to me, that's not a problem. It's just that I feel like people, like, for all these other movies, people just said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is what Star Wars is. This is what Star Wars is, and I think it's, I think to make a movie like Star Wars to me doesn't have to be what it was, and to me that was the problem with all the other movies. Like, because I think, okay, the first two Star Wars movies, Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, are great.
Mm-hmm.
I think kind of everything else, and even some parts like the Force Awakens was good because of how bad not because of how bad the prequels were, but it was a reminder of, oh, this is what Star Wars could be. Because, hey,
Mm-hmm.
remember this? Hey, remember this? And, like, that was the whole movie. Like, The Force Awakens was just a reboot of A New Hope, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
basically the same thing. So, to me,
It's funny. I didn't feel like that initially. It
but
wasn't until later
it
on where I looked
is
at it and like, oh,
it
okay,
is
well, it's kind of
very
like that.
much
But
it is very
it
much A New Hope.
wasn't bad though. I feel like it
No,
was
I know
great at kind of introducing the world
it was
to
great in bringing
audiences.
us back to that world. Because
Mm-hmm.
to me, introducing, I think it's more of bringing us back to that world.
Like actual real sets too, because the last trilogy barely had any real sets, and this was one of the first times we actually are like in real places. Like you're in an area. You know what I mean?
I
But
just
I know
feel
it just.
like I feel like it, like, this is the one thing too, of people, like, The Empire Strikes Back
Hmm.
did, like, I'm not saying that The Last Jedi is on that level, but a lot of what happened in that movie, were things that were never done before, that weren't, like, for instance, the way that movie kind of ends, and that, the bad guys are kind of defeated. I mean, the good guys are kind of defeated, and
Hmm.
you know, and the whole Luke Skywalker, I'm not sure, I'm your, that shit was like new. That was not, there was no, I
Wait,
think
Luke
part of it,
Skywalker, what?
I'm your father or whatever, I'm your
Hmm.
father, I think, not that The Last Jedi did something so great, but I think it went down a route of similar to The Empire Strikes Back, where it just wasn't what the first one was at all. It
Hmm.
wasn't this, Now, like I said, I think the tone is what threw people off, and people had so much expectations for their status quo of characters and stuff. So when that wasn't met, then, and I think also there's this over analytical thing about, movies, where people will take every little thing in a movie and say this is it. But anyway,
Hmm.
so
I mean,
let's.
well, I'll say this. I think with the Last Jedi, the one thing I lost my train of thought. The one thing I felt like like to kind of go back to what you said, that people change. I completely understand that, and I wouldn't expect an older Luke to be happy go lucky, like, hey guy, hey Ray, I'm Luke, because
Uh-huh.
when the movies take place when he's much younger and more impressionable, and but he did grow that throughout the movie, and throughout the throughout the very first trilogy, part three to part six, right? That's what it's called. Um,
part
he
part four to
he
six. But go ahead.
sorry, yeah, four to six. Sorry, four to six. Yeah, I am terrible at this. Um, he showed growth. From being a very naive, quote unquote, country kid, to becoming a strong warrior, and whatnot. So he showed growth, and I think one of the things that I felt was that, well, whatever turned him cynical, it didn't feel compelling enough. It just felt like I
Right. I agree. I think there's a clumsiness in the way it was explained.
like I'm
Um,
like all I'm seeing is like I feel like that short brief I barely not that I barely remember, but I just remember him. It was something about Kylo,
yeah, going evil, or
turning evil, and then after that just made him upset, and he didn't believe in the Jedi or whatever. Like it didn't feel convincing, and I think that's part of it. Like you feel like sometimes you
but
need something that
but
really
all right.
convince you that
But
okay, he's this way because of this situation, and I felt like
I'll
you
tell
know go ahead.
I'll tell you this though. Whatever was in that movie to me is more convincing than anything in the last fucking the Rise of the Skywalker, because literally that movie was like so MacGuffin heavy in the beginning. Like,
we gotta find this. Okay, go to this planet. You gotta find that. Hey, go to this planet.
Oh, and it just happens to be here by this guy's ship that's been here for like 30 years. That no one decided to look around that ship. Oh, Luke was tracking this the whole time. Oh, okay. I guess we had to.
It felt like a video game. Like
it was.
It really felt like
it was so. And then, oh my gosh, she has healing powers. Like no one in the Force ever had that before. But okay, whatever. So
you know what I hated? I hated that fake when they did that fake out with the evil Ray. Like they showed it on the commercials, and I was just like, "Oh my god, let me see what's going on."
Oh, and that was just like a dream illusion or something.
I was like, "All right, come on, now this." I was the most Last Jedi thing they did in the Rise of the Skywalker, because I'm just like,
no, see that is a fake out. That is to do something to fake people out. That because that served. See, like this is what I'm trying to tell you. Like some of the things in the Last Jedi might be stupidly fake out or haha, but it serves the plot at least. Not that thing that showed that.
Why'd you do it?
That literally, like, when I saw that too, I said, so this isn't a thing, right? Like, she didn't go. Like, this is literally just something you show in a commercial to give. I said, wow, they took my money.
Like, so there's something to show in a commercial and something to sell as a toy.
Yeah, they got
evil Ray. I was there for 5 seconds.
They got me. They bend me over.
That's like if you watch the whole trilogy and then in the last scene of the trilogy, you wake up and you find out it's all a dream. I was like, come on,
they
like, don't do like like not to say this is what Star Wars is, because I don't want to say Star Wars is this, Star Wars is that, but when you're watching like something like an epic tale, everything has to kind of count in a way. You know what I mean? Like you're telling a tale, a story of an adventure, and a journey of these characters. Nobody really, as the Rise of the Skywalker has shown, you really don't have time to try to
just make everybody happy. That's all I care.
Make everybody happy. I think I would have respected the Rise of Skywalker more if they had just went along with whatever happened in part.
But did you read the original script? They not that you read the script, but there was somebody leaked the original episode 9 script that they were originally working on before they got J.J. Abrams back and all that.
Nah, I didn't see it.
So I'm not gonna go into it because I don't remember it and it's not that important. But like, it sounded like it really just went off of the things that happened. And it just sounded like a much better story to tell. Like,
all right, give me like a little preview. I want to hear.
I can't remember. I just remember like.
Cause he said it sounds good, so
it was called Duel of the Fates, and it had
sounds like a Final Fantasy game.
Well, Duel of the Fates is the name of the song, the battle song from the first from episode 1. So it's a John Williams soundtrack.
I see. Mm-hmm.
So it was called Duel of Fates. I think it focused more on the battle between Kylo Ren, who was too far gone down to the dark side, and Rey, but it just seemed more like a movie that was written to be its own thing instead of this big reaction piece, which episode 9. That's all it is. It's just a big reaction.
Yeah, that's a perfect way of it. It's a reaction.
And like you said, one of the worst things is like it's unfortunate that what's her face passed, Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher.
But
I would say I'll give.
I was gonna say every moment that she was in the movie was so bad to me, because to me, I commend what they were trying to do, but I could tell that they had to work around it just to get it to work. I could tell that, like, she's hugging a character, she's talking to a character that you don't see until they switch the camera angle and show, okay, this is who she's talking to, and they show like the back of her head, and then she said the most vague lines. Like
sometimes you have to be optimistic. Sometimes
trust the droids.
Just destroyed another planet.
Trust the droids or whatever. Don't discount a droid. What? What are we talking about? What movie is this?
I'll say this. Considering that Carrie Fisher had passed away, and they're kind of working with archival footage. I think it's
No,
a commendable
no,
job. I don't think
no.
I wouldn't say it's good.
No.
I'd say it's commendable because it's like she's part of the story, and
I'm not
okay,
but
it's kind of
the way
and I think you probably could have her without you could do something where she's not in the story, but I feel like they wanted to pay their respects in a way.
Yeah,
so they kind of like salvaged what they had.
Let's just ruin
so I
this
could commend
movie.
it, but she was definitely a different character.
Let's ruin this movie just to pay some respects. Like, because to me, okay, we're still telling the movie. We got these three characters who are supposed to have this chemistry that we never see get built, and they already expect us to believe shit off screen. So just write her death in the title crawl. I don't, she was on
the dead speaks. Leia's
dead. I don't even have her the voiceover.
What's crazy? When as soon as I saw that crawl, I know a lot of people gave it shit, but as soon as I saw that crawl, the dead speak, I'm like, oh my lord, this is. I don't know why it just just comes off as so hammy.
Yes,
I've never seen such a hammy title crawl.
It sounded like somebody that couldn't wrote that. I don't know how to the dead speak.
It's like, how do we introduce this guy? I don't know. Just say the dead speak and just we'll write the rest.
I was like, what does this have anything to do with anything?
That title crawl is so perfect. If you can't come up with an idea to make something, you just put in title crawl and just whatever. Just
throw a bunch of money and just whatever comes out, it'll be fine. That's literally what it is. So anyway,
before we go, because I know we're kind of running, but I just want to know your opinions, because one of the things another thing I didn't like about the Rise of Skywalker was that whole Rey and Kylo kiss. Like, let me actually, I was trying to talk about character.
I just got chills when you said that because of how out of place and how stupid.
Let me tell you something. Like, the one thing I did like about the Rise of, I can't kill these titles. The one thing that I did like about The Last Jedi was that kind of that Force communication that Rey and Kylo developed, where they're kind of talking to each other using the Force.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool, and I loved their conversations, how they were always
and that to me
each other, that built, and kind of find out more about each other. I like that because it was so intriguing.
But that to me,
when I was watching those scenes, I was wondering okay, are they related? Are they not related? What's this connection that they have? What's going on? What's going to happen? And I felt that those scenes built a lot of suspense because you were actually, it's like you're seeing, it's like they're reading each other's mind, and they're trying to find out.
Wait, let me say.
It's almost like poker in a way. You're trying to find out the other one's hand, and I thought that was done really, really well.
But I like how, and that to me in The Last Jedi, how that led to them teaming up together and having this kind of, you don't know what their relationship is, and you don't know, but it's like nothing you've seen before in this universe. It's not
exactly
once. That's what I like. But in this movie,
oh my lord, when they kissed, that was.
But not even that. I forgot to talk about, you can talk about their Force connection in this movie. It just, it was like, oh, wait a minute. I need to find out where you are. Let me just grab your necklace from the Force world somehow. And there was hints in the other movie that the water dropping and stuff. But now he can just grab whatever she has to find out where she is. And it's just that, oh my god, it was so.
And it could teleport stuff, she can hold something, and then.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I didn't mind that too much, but then it was just I think.
Well, we need to get him to figure out where she is. So let's see. Oh, just this. Literally, let's just do that. He can just snatch. I think that was, and then their fight at first of all I was so hyped for the Knights of Ren, who didn't do shit. They were just a bunch of guys in armors with swords, and
they just to stand there, and you can see them.
And then
if you would have shown me the lineup of the Knights of Ren, I couldn't pick one out.
They didn't do anything.
From nowhere.
They didn't do anything.
Know what they did. They didn't do anything. They were in the background.
They just got beat up at the end.
They just serve as fodder for him to fight and also sell action figures.
And then so let's get to then. They had the most kind of they look when they fought in that watery place, which I thought looked kind of like a cool set piece for a fight, but it just felt that fight felt they both just looked like they were out of shape and didn't care about the fight. Like there was such a lack of energy. You know, like I know one of the things is like less is more. You know, that's why I didn't make them have like an hour-long fight like Vader and Obi-Wan in episode 3. But like there was so much emotion in episode 6 when Luke is angry and he's just wailing on Darth Vader, and you can see. And I think they were trying to go for some kind of less is more fight here, but it just felt sloppy and just ugh.
It was terrible.
And then like you said, so let's get to the end, and I don't even talk about the Palpatine. I just don't even care. The whole
I
ending.
think Palpatine was just like he was just kind of like just.
He was just bad.
Plot. Like
bad.
It was
guy.
just like, hey, look, Palpatine again. Don't you guys like that?
The ultimate bad guy. Okay. But
all
like
right.
you said, the kiss. Oh my god! That when I saw that, I said, "Wait, what? Wait, but Finn has something to tell you." Oh, I guess we're not gonna see what that.
We're not gonna find that. How would you? Why would you do that? Like this. Like if you know what's crazy? You're trying to erase some of the I guess decisions of the last movie, and then you're just creating your own. You know what I mean? Ray, and then Finn telling her he has something to say and things like that. Like you gotta be kidding me! Like that. That's like and then whatever Finn has to say, it's annoying that he didn't get to say it, but I guarantee you, no one's gonna be wanting to talk about it forever. No one's gonna be discussing this. Like, what did Finn have to say?
I mean, there were videos, but I don't know.
There were videos, but really, no one really cares because no one really cares about Finn. You know, people don't like Ray. I
liked Finn. I like Finn.
I don't know. I felt Finn was wasted. Honestly, I felt Finn was wasted. Like, if I were to talk about the characters, I felt like number one, Kylo Ren. I felt like he was like he's such a middling bad guy. Like I felt like they didn't really push his evilness enough, and I don't feel like.
But I think that was the point of him because it
was kind of the point.
He wasn't quite evil.
It wasn't quite evil, and I felt. Yeah, that's true. And I don't know. I just felt like because he wasn't like super quite evil, you just never got that that memorable that figure of evil in this trilogy. You know what I mean? Because
see, that's the thing. I don't think it necessarily needed that.
But you're talking about Star Wars, a movie that.
But see, that's what I'm trying to tell you, though. But that's the whole point of what I'm trying to tell you of how it doesn't have to be that way just because it's a Star Wars. It doesn't have to be
that way.
Like, okay, let me give you a good example of why. Right. Okay, have you watched The Mandalorian?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but The Mandalorian is very good and it's very popular. It takes place in the Star Wars world and doesn't deal with the same kind of shit that Star Wars is, which means you don't need to know. You can watch The Mandalorian without having seen anything in Star Wars and enjoy it very much. Because, to me, you don't need what they shoved as this good versus evil battle to be a good Star Wars anything. I think The Mandalorian proves it, and it gives me hope that they can do interesting things with the Star Wars universe as long as they get away from this thing that we... Because think about it this way. There's been 9 movies in this trilogy saga, and maybe 3 to 4 of them are okay. Two of them are good, right? The original's great. Everybody, you'll get killed if you say Empire sucks. But so let's say those 2 are great. Some people really don't like the Jedi Return, the Return of the Jedi. Everybody thinks all the prequel trilogy suck. Some people like the 3rd one, but most people think they all suck. And a lot of people think all 3 of the new ones suck. So, even The Force Awakens, because a lot of people it's too much like this, it's too much. And I think the thing about watching The Mandalorian, which is, okay, I'm aware it's set in a Star Wars world, so I get a little bit of benefit from that. But it deals with a lot of other things that have nothing to do with anything in Star Wars that we've seen. It shows this whole other side of Star Wars, which is so much more fun and interesting to see than anything of the last 6 Star Wars movies I've seen. I'm not even kidding. I promise you.
I'm gonna watch it.
The first 3 episodes, and you'll see exactly what I'm saying.
But I feel like if you're going to, and I'm not disagreeing with you, you can make any story you want, and and I'm down with it. But I always feel like you're going to need like a good antagonist.
There's elements of a story. Like there's a protagonist. Usually the
Yeah,
protagonist.
everything has a structure. There's a certain
There's a
structure. Like,
structure.
there's certain foundations that you need to make a story move along. And I think with this trilogy, because their antagonist wasn't as strong, it didn't create such a strong story. Because we can say this, everybody knows
No.
with Batman. One of Batman's greatest strengths is that he has very interesting villains. So those interesting villains can help him create a good story. But if you don't, if his villains were weak, it's a lot harder to create that story, or you would have to rely a lot more on Batman, because you can have multiple Batman movies and his villains can almost like take over the story in a way, and it makes it and because they're so interesting. Kylo Ren wasn't as interesting, and I felt like they could have done more with him. I felt like as soon as they get into like towards the end of like the what is it called, the Last Jedi, I feel like I'm just like disinterested in him as a villain.
I gotta disagree. I disagree with you with the Batman thing, because I don't think that's the most. I think like Batman's stories sometimes I don't think are just like the most interesting thing are the villains. I think they put them in interesting situations, but I don't think that's necessarily it. I think sometimes because to me, the antagonist might have to be a character, but I think sometimes there's an inner struggle sometimes with Batman. Like, okay, Joker was cool in the movie, right? What movie was it? The Batman movie. Which one was it?
The Dark Knight.
Yeah, but that wasn't the real. He was the agent of chaos, as he wants to call himself, whatever. But the real thing about it was like he said, it was a battle for Gotham's soul, and I think the idea of this part of what makes Batman interesting is his whole thing is he doesn't kill, right, and he doesn't do this, and I think sometimes these villains put him in situations where he might have to make choices, but it's the choices and stuff. It's the character, I think, of Batman that's kind of enduring. I think Joker is like, because when we talk about Batman villains, like, unless you're like a super Batman nerd, most people just talk about Joker. And I just feel like, as of late, he's just been this kind of this thing where like, oh, Batman and his villains are like, whatever. But I don't feel like, I'm not the biggest Batman guy, so I'm not gonna go too deep into it. Like, I've read some comics, but I haven't read like, like all of them and stuff like that. I just feel like, I think where you're going with, to me, where you're talking about how Kylo Ren wasn't like a very interesting or powerful villain, but I found even in, I would say my favorite thing about this movie was his because if you watch all three movies, he has this continual pull of fighting against the light. Like, he wants to be this bad guy, but he really isn't. And you can kind of watch all these movies. He's unsure of himself. He's, no, he's not Vader. He's not Vader. And I don't know what antagonist was in, I mean, besides, I guess, Palpatine in the first couple of movies.
And there was like that guy that was there for like 30 minutes.
What, Darth Maul?
No. Wait, are you talking about from the prequel or the?
I'm talking about like the villains in all these Star Wars movies.
Oh, okay, yeah. Go ahead.
I'm just saying.
I mean, Palpatine was pretty good in the prequel.
mean, yeah, because he was just silly. He was super silly evil. So, I never felt like, honestly, I never felt like scared of him or anything. I didn't feel like he was so powerful. I just, I didn't feel like that way about Anakin. I didn't feel anything with watching those.
I mean, I would say when Anakin started becoming evil, and
he killed a bunch of baby Jedis and a couple of diplomats. Like, what else? What else did he really do? Of course,
he was brooding.
Yeah. Okay. So, to me, I didn't find
he had eyeshadow. He was brooding.
I think Kylo Ren was a much more interesting villain than. I don't think he's as iconic as Vader, but I think he's a lot more interesting than Vader. I think. Yeah. I think because to me, like, he he had a kind of powerful presence in the Force Awakens. You know, he did get beat by a girl, and that was the whole kind of thing about it. But if you I just felt like I was more intrigued with his fight, because you could tell the whole time he was fighting whether to be good or bad. And then when you know who he is, you know he's the son of Han Solo and Leia. Mm-hmm. So you know there's that light in him somewhere. It just went wrong somewhere or whatever. But which is the whole pull of the dark side, right? It gets those people that are good. It does that. I just felt like even with this last movie, I felt like that was one of the consistent things in the whole trilogy, was this battle between good and evil of Kylo Ren. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was the only thing to me that actually kind of remained on course, I felt like. And I felt like it was, to me at least, the most interesting thing. And I think it was one of the only things I cared about in Rise of Skywalker. Like, I think it was handled stupidly. And like,
yeah, and that's what happens, you know.
I think, but that's more right. I think that's more of like them not knowing really what to do. But I don't think it made like.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I feel like
that element to me was more interesting.
It's just like a waste of potential, and I feel like, you know, it's still you know, it's still a lackluster villain.
No, I disagree. I disagree. I don't think he was lackluster. I think he was different. I don't need a villain to be super ultra powerful and mean or whatever. Or, you know, I don't need it to be what was it, the Winter Soldier? I don't need a Winter Soldier, which was badass and cool and prevented, you know. I don't need that to be an interesting protagonist. I find, because I think part of what makes sometimes interesting villains is a relatability, you know. And I think like
sometimes
I think, but I think like unless you're just like you want surface level and you just want bad guy, then okay.
I mean, I don't want bad guy, but I think, you know, you want something that feels like more of a threat. Like, okay, you know, like,
no, see, well, that's where we differ, because I don't need him to necessarily be a threat, because
then why then it's like you need no bad guy if he's not a threat. If you feel any threat looming, or
because
something that
I'm not there to see. I don't need to go there just to see good guy beats bad guy. I don't think that necessarily makes.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's pretty much what it is. You know what I mean? Like, when it comes down to Star Wars, that's pretty much what it is. It's good versus evil.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons why. But see, no. Listen, this is why I was hoping for something different, because I've seen that a million times already. I don't need to see it again.
We've seen a lot of these a million times.
No, but listen,
how you present it.
But that's why I said in the second movie, what I found which is interesting is it did something different with it. It went in a different direction. It didn't necessarily say I'm evil bad guy. No, I'm something different. I'm something new. That's what. And then they took it and
wasted our time.
No, they took it and they threw it to Palpatine, and they made him the evil bad guy of the Rise of Jedi. He was super powerful. He was super whatever. He had all the power in the world, and he was the worst. He was boring. It was stupid. Where I was at least still interested in Kylo Ren's battle, because to me he was a much more interesting villain. He wasn't all powerful, and part of that to me is part of that charm. Like I don't because then who do we have? That guy.
I think it's a balance of, you know. It's a balance, because, you know, you bring up a good point. You know, Palpatine was all powerful and everything, but at the same time too, he wasn't interesting enough. You know, it was like I said before, he was like just a vehicle to say, hey, I'm the one who started this all, and I'm going to give you this army. Like, this man is able to rise an army out of nowhere, out of thin air, you know, and whatever, and, you know, and everything. And he's powerful. He has force lightning, but he wasn't compelling. So at the end of the day, I think it's a balance. I think they needed to kind of create a balance, you know, of making someone with a good characterization, but still seem like a threat. When I watch Kylo Ren, I rarely feel like he was a threat. You know, I rarely ever felt that.
I don't know. I just feel like that I feel like I didn't necessarily need to be threatened by him for him to be. To me, I feel like there's a lot of other things that could be, because for instance, like, there can be bad people in a movie who have a different kind of hold on the story more than just what they can do. But sometimes how they can interact with people, or because even the earlier Palpatine was more interesting because part of his thing really wasn't that he was strong bad guy. He was just good at politics. He was just good at turning people bad. And that to me is more interesting. It's not a threat like fear this guy's power, but like he worked in a different way because like a lot of movies, right? Like if you watch, a lot of movies, they don't necessarily have the same kind of issues of the villain or the and because that's the thing about antagonists, right? Like an antagonist is not necessarily a villain. The antagonist is just someone who's against the protagonist. So the story is always the struggle between the two, and I just say for me the struggle between Rey and I don't know. There's so much to dive into because I feel like I didn't even talk about Rey and the problems I have with her.
What do you think about Rey then? What's your take on Rey as a character? Because
I think Rey. I just feel like she's a character. I don't have the same issues that everybody does have with her being too strong.
Mary Sue.
Yeah, with her being too strong. I do think that they. I don't. It's hard to really talk about it and such because then you have to talk about her across the 3 movies.
I mean, all right, I could talk about it across the 3 movies because to me, I don't really feel like she has really changed that much. I don't have it like
which is
everyone.
Fine.
Like I know everyone like calls her like a Mary Sue or whatever. I kind of feel that way, and it's like when I see the character on screen, I want to like her. I feel like the actress tries her best to bring something out of the character, but I really feel like overall she really is kind of like she almost feels like a silent protagonist in the video game. Like you're there, seeing everything happening. You in terms of characterization, it's really not much to go on. Like I'm trying to remember. Like I felt like in part 1, she had more of a character in a way. She had a little bit more going on. I do feel that she started picking up on things way too fast. She started using her force powers really fast, compared to other characters in the franchise. Like when she was telling that guy,
maybe she's just better.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. I think maybe she just realizes that she can do that. Sometimes I guess it happens. I don't think you need 3 movies to find out she can do that.
That's why.
She's Palpatine, right?
Yeah,
she's the Palpatine. So she can find out really fast. So I didn't have a problem with that. I just feel like in terms of characterization, they didn't really do much for her. I don't feel like they gave her a lot. They gave her physical struggles. I just when I think about Rey, I just don't come up with anything in my mind. Like I just feel like she's almost kind of like a plain Jane, and I feel like it would have been good to see her suffer a little bit more. Not like just because I know there's a thing with female suffering, and people think that it would have been good to see her struggle more. And I feel like in the last movie they tried to add that, but I really didn't know what to make of her character, honestly.
Yeah,
there was really nothing there. Like I don't hate her. There's nothing to really hate. It's just she's just there.
I think I feel pretty similar. I think she was had some potential to be a little more. But that's what I mean, right? Like, at least for me, she had potential to be a little more interesting, and then she kind of turned out to be exactly what she is, which is an all-around, always good character. And I think kind of, I don't know if it's just cinema or whatever, but we kind of expect a little bit more out of our characters instead of someone so straight line. And they kind of show little hints of her being like a little obsessive about Kylo Ren thing or whatever, but that's what she was, and I guess that's
it was forgettable.
Yeah.
They really didn't give her anything kind of to like hang on to, like I know. She's a female. I think, especially with Kathleen Kennedy, her idea was to, have a strong female empowerment. But strong female empowerment doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be clean cut, And, if she's nice all the way, if she's like a super nice person, I don't mind that either. Luke was kind of like that, like this, super naive. Well, I think he's more naive than nice in the beginning. But he represented good. Like he was just like a good natured person.
He had a. I think he had a character arc where he kind of went from nothing to kind of something, and then he kind of kept. Whereas Rey I don't think she really had an arc. I felt like she was kind of Rey throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, if I think about Rey in the first movie and then the last movie, I won't know the difference. Like I don't know what she's been through. I can't see anything she's been through. I think with Luke, you can kind of see it in his attitude in terms of like maybe hers too. But I feel like with Luke, it was more, because I can remember in the very first movie or the third movie, the third part, he was just very like, young and everything, and just looking for like something out there. But then as you go on to the movies, especially in the third movie where he's just like confident in himself, stronger person, it's very subtle. It's not like it's a 360, but it's very subtle. But I think it's there. With Rey, I can only think about like the scenes where she's talking to Finn and getting annoyed with him.
Well, one of her things I think was her, which is another reason I like The Last Jedi, because I think that like part of her and us as viewers we were already thinking, okay, who is this Rey character? Why is she so good? And we all thought we wanted to think that we got to figure out who her parents are, which is one of her biggest things in all the movies. Is she was waiting on this planet because she thought her parents were going to come back. And she thought, blah, blah, blah. And then The Last Jedi kind of tells you, like, your parents were nobodies. Which I think he really wanted to stress that, because that was like what he wanted to do is change that kind of status quo of you had to be,
part of a lineage.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind.
He took that away. She was still this very powerful character that just wasn't part of baby Jesus Skywalker, because he was born, he was conceived by the Force itself. Because there was no father.
Something. I think instead of just making like Rey's parents body, she didn't have to be. I don't think you have to make her related to like one of the prominent figure in the Star Wars universe, but at least give her like a more interesting backstory, at least, or something. And I think that's what people are waiting for. I don't think. Yeah, but I think a lot of people are leaning to Skywalker.
But that was the thing, right?
Even if you did lean to a Skywalker where she was Skywalker, I feel like you can still make it interesting. Like you have so much stuff to work with.
But I don't think,
and I think that's more important.
But I think
than saying.
I think that was something that fans, right? That's what fans wanted, right? They wanted that. They wanted something interesting, and I think it says something that like you don't have to give exactly that. Like, I think to me when they were like, your parents are nobodies, which was definitely what's his face, whoever directed Episode 8. That's what he wanted. They obviously retroactively changed that, but your parents, because come on, Palpatine, get the fuck out of it. So your parents are nobody. I think that moment, not that I felt like, okay, he did that just to smack everybody in the face, but I think it went to a bigger narrative of, his whole thing was everybody was, even with Yoda burning the temple, and everybody was caught up in this idea of what this had to be. And the movie itself is saying Star Wars doesn't have to be this. Now people got mad about it, and because everybody says no, this is what a Star Wars story is, and and I get it. Okay,
I just feel like they didn't have an interesting alternative.
No, that's a fine criticism that they didn't have an interesting alternative, but to me, I just feel like I feel like the stories really had nowhere to go, but to where it ended up, doing everything that Star Wars fans want. Now they did it, like, obviously I'm not saying they did it right, but I think like, how I wonder, like, when you show these, like, if you're showing these movies to people you've never seen it before, right? And there's this phenomena that that sometimes the first movie that people like weighs heavily on all the other, because like everybody they say when Empire first came back, people when it came out, it wasn't popular. It did not do well in terms of critical. People said this movie because at the time it was dark.
Yeah, it had for the time.
It was cliffhanger. It had a cliffhanger. It didn't end. Now years later, and I'm not saying this is the last Jedi gonna happen. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like people sometimes, and that's also too like sometimes I think the initial reaction for a lot of things has to wear off before sometimes you can appreciate certain things. And I don't even know, that could be with this last. I don't think that's with this last one because I think it's really a corporate,
It's like corporate.
But I'll tell you this: I rewatched The Force Awakens recently, actually, and I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, actually, a lot more. I enjoyed it a lot more than the other Star Wars movie that people think is super great, which is the Rogue One. Rogue One. I think Rogue One.
I love Rogue One.
Rogue One.
Actually, that's probably the best.
Rogue One sucks. Okay.
I love Rogue One.
Rogue One. First of all, Rogue One is just literally it's a movie that can't even. First of all, it can't stand on its own. It cannot.
What do you mean by that?
It without it being a movie that links episode 3 to 4. It does not stand on its own.
Let's say it doesn't link to episode 4, right? Let's say it's standalone movie, but let's say the fact that it's still a plot about these people trying to stop.
What people?
The ragtag group.
What's their names?
Listen, I saw that movie once, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, but I remember seeing.
I know Jin Erso.
Okay.
I know she was there.
Okay.
Not she was there, but I know her name. Everyone else, I don't recall.
The only character I remember from that movie is the robot, and and I don't even remember his name. But I rewatched that movie actually, and I don't like it because it's literally a movie where the first 2/3 of the movie is utter garbage. The last bit of the movie. The last 40 minutes of that movie, I think, is very entertaining. It shows the battle and stuff. But like I said, I didn't care about these characters that much, and I know it's not just about that. But you could tell how much there's so many things in that movie that could have been really good. I think it would have been good for a shorter story instead of this movie. But we can't take it in a vacuum. We know it's about the plans to get the Death Star plans to whatever. So really all I needed to see was that stuff. I didn't really need to see, because I don't remember much of the other stuff before. I mean,
they showed her childhood when she was a kid.
Who cares?
Her parents dying.
That to me did not add anything. But you know what that movie did good? Because even though we know the outcome of the story, because we all know at the end of the story the Death Star is still going to be built, and obviously they didn't fulfill their plans. All right.
But I feel like it was still an interesting journey to watch. So even if you it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Even if you know what's going to happen, it depends on the journey. It's up to the writers to make it an interesting journey to watch. But make it compelling. Because no matter what you do, there's always going to be a formula to something.
But compelling, part of a formula. But part of what makes stories interesting are the characters in the story, and that movie does not have characters that the idea of the plot is compelling because we know of the Death Star and these things surrounding it, right? But these characters, that's what I'm saying. You can't take that story and take it out of that. You can't take it out of what it was and it still be good. The best. I don't know. No, the best part. All right, because you got to stop. Okay, no, you don't have to stop. But sometimes I know you.
I'm just saying, I don't know. I mean,
I know you in movies. It's okay, there was that movie is literally that movie has moments and things where it's if you're Star Wars fan, it's thrown in there to make you oh my god, for instance and I'm not even just talking about the cool Vader scene. That scene is cool. That scene could have been 10 times cooler if they hadn't if you didn't even know Vader was in the movie. Imagine if that scene showed up hidden. Right. Imagine if that scene just like you had no idea to expect that Vader was even in this fucking movie, and but whatever. That's aside of the point. I just feel like that movie did. I don't like. I watched it, and I mean, this is just some people like this. It's like almost like The Last Jedi. There's just people that really like it, and there's people that don't. And I just feel like it does. I think it only works because of what it is, more so than being an interesting story about because like when you watch even war stories, part of the connection, and I mean if you like Jane Erso or whatever, like because this is the thing, like these characters, I can't like I know there was a Donnie Yen was in it, and
I felt like that was just a marketing ploy for the Chinese market.
Okay, and then there was some other.
Yeah, I remember his character there. I don't remember. He was
there was some dude. There was another. There was like a few dudes. Like Forrest Whitaker was in it for a minute, and then he just decides to die, and then because he doesn't. He's tired of running and just says, "I'm gonna die here." Like what? I hate that. That's so stupid. But anyway, let's cut this.
So like to kind of put everything in perspective, like or kind of like
because we were going to talk about Bad Boys, but I think we'll save that for another.
We'll save that for another time. All right. So overall, your overall takeaway from this Star Wars trilogy?
I think that people should stop making trilogies and just make one movie that's good, and then they make another Star Wars movie that you got a good world. It's it doesn't have to be a trilogy. Star Wars, like that's what I'm trying to tell you. Like you should really watch The Mandalorian. Granted, it's like eight. I'm gonna watch it. It's I'm definitely gonna watch it. 8 episodes of like they're not that long. Like they're 45 minutes, 30 minutes. It's not like an hour long. But I like The Mandalorian so much that I stopped watching it because I enjoyed it and I don't want that. Like I don't want to rush through it. So but I enjoyed. I'll tell you this. Like I said, I think The Mandalorian, the first 3 episodes so far, The Mandalorian has been the best Star Wars movie since Empire Strikes Back. Like that's how it is. And I believe that. And the best part is it doesn't have anything to do, with what we think Star Wars is, and it's very popular.
I think when it comes down to it, Disney doesn't want to reduce Star Wars. I think they're always going to kind of rely on the tried and true formula in some way.
But I'm
not saying that if they change it, it'll be bad.
They might rethink that because it's all about money in the end, right? So they're making these movies because they want to make, and the lash against Solo, which was to me, I like Solo better than not better than any of these movies, but I definitely like Solo more than The Last Skywalker, The Rise of Skywalker, whatever. Like we can't even remember the fucking name of this movie, The Rise of Skywalker. Like that's such a dumb name, and that ending too with the Skywalker. Like no, that doesn't.
Skywalker.
What is that?
That's not your name.
And what does it matter? Like.
You know what how she ended it? She just say, "I'm Rey."
Yes,
leave it alone. That's it.
That would have been so much better. I'm Rey.
Who? I mean, first of all, let's show you some of the bad writing in this movie. I don't want to go on a rant again because I know we're trying to run mine down. Yeah, but it shows you how stupid it was because it's like you live in a freaking universe where anybody can have like dumb names. I've never seen anybody so obsessed with like names like, "Oh, what's your family name?" Like that's such a contrived.
Yeah, I'm Rey. Ray what? Ray.
Ray what?
Skywalker.
I've never seen that before.
And then the movie ends.
Like, oh my god, give me a break.
The only thing I was interested in is she had a gold lightsaber at the end. That's the only thing that was like cool.
Yeah, piss colored lightsaber, great.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like I enjoyed The Mandalorian so much in terms of just in terms of there are things in it that almost like the other Star represent like you see a bigger lore of something else, which is like Mandalorians are bounty hunters. Like it's not spoilers; they're bounty.
Nah, I know.
So
pretty cool.
Right. So, but like, there's more than one, and so like there's a whole thing with them, which they don't give you all about them and stuff. At least in a few. But it's just I'm back at watching this with wonder and excitement. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I'm interested. I'm not sitting here dissecting it because it's like stupid. It's simple. I think there's like that's the thing.
What it is? I think now that they are kind of finished with this trilogy of trilogies, I think it's an opportunity for them to start completely brand new and not be afraid of it. I think that's what the issue is that when you have not the issue, but I think they've been relying so much on nostalgia to kind of push things forward that it's kind of put them in a rut in a way.
Well,
and now that it's kind of over, they should focus on creating like.
I think that's what they're doing now too, because they said like it's Star Wars. There's gonna be a movie like in 2022 or something like that, I think, and that. But the good thing about it, at least anything new in a Star Wars movie, is that except for the Obi-Wan series that's gonna come out. But other than that, that's on Disney Plus. But the movies are gonna at least be they're original now, because they're done with the Skywalker. The Skywalker trilogy is, epic. Whatever is done. Like, episode 9 ends the 42-year whatever done. So now at least going forward, there's no status quo, right? There's this. You have the universe of Star Wars. Yeah, maybe you have some themes of the Force and all that, but it doesn't have to live in the world that George Lucas kind of got lucky when he created, because he couldn't. He obviously really couldn't replicate it, because he didn't even direct. He didn't direct Empire. I don't even know if he wrote that
movie.
Right. It was right, and you could tell when George Lucas came back in, because there was stupid shit in every single movie, like the fucking Ewoks and all, like stuff that could sell fucking toys.
Greatest takeaway, and this is how I feel, is that it's too many missed opportunities.
They fucked it up.
Yeah,
they really fucked it up.
In layman terms, if you want to say it like that,
they fucked it up.
I think a plan is good, but sometimes you can, do you can do things. Sometimes good things happen without a plan.
Wait, oh god, this was such. This to me, this ties right back into our other podcast, which was about Sonic the Hedgehog. I think this. You remember how I was saying too, like, okay, granted, the redesign of Sonic is good. They needed that.
It's awesome. I love looking at it.
But the issue is how my issue before was the takeaway of how the vocal minority of fans that hate things, that make loud noises, are starting to really have an effect on how movies and how stories are being told now. So we're not getting any. I'm not trying to say these are just artistic visions, because a lot of these are just to make money. But now we're like, when it comes to writing a story and stuff like that, they're more of, instead of writing a story that people want to tell of a character going through something or whatever, they're now a reaction to, well, like you said, nostalgia. So that has to be included, and
expectations, I guess.
Yeah, well, like, God, this is what this movie has to be, so we got to make it like this. We have to check off these boxes. And I think, like, and the reason I brought Sonic up was because of that Lash actually prompted a studio, which I don't think that's ever happened, but like prompted a studio. And you heard that there was like 10 different endings supposedly to Rise of Skywalker or whatever.
Yeah, I heard about that. I'm not surprised. It's I said, this whole trilogy sounds like a mess.
That they tested it, and they said a lot of them were so bad, like with bad reactions.
And if that was bad, I don't even know. I hate the kiss, so I don't even know what could be worse.
Right. We probably were saved from something even more despicable. I just think that, like,
they probably had an ending with, like,
I think
it's Kylo and Rey with kids or something.
Well, I just think it's kind of scary that we as a consumer of art can affect the art itself. So like, I know not all art is the same, but it's literally like, Imagine if like musicians or artists that paint stuff felt the need to change their expression because of what they thought how people might react to it. So like, I just feel like there's money to be made in all of it, like even with musicians and stuff.
But I feel like with these movies, there's so much money to be made, and so much money that goes into it. It makes them scared. Kind of like how, kind of bring it back to the whole video games, like how
I agree.
You don't have a lot of games that have like a lot of creativity because they're
except
more
for
focused on trying to sell.
Except for indie games, right? Because
indie games can afford that because they're doing something new, smaller budget,
and they're also made by a smaller. Like usually when like you have a good idea and bounce it around, if you're making your own game, you're just gonna throw it in. But if you're on a team of like 5 people and 4 people poo-poo your idea, then you're not gonna put it in because oh God, I guess they didn't like that. And I get it. Like you said, yeah, there's so much to be made, and I think that itself ruins art in terms of like when it's just to be. That's why that's the whole thing with like a sequel in general. A lot of times, a sequel is not a story that needed to be told. It's just a story that it has to be told because there's money to be made. Like it's
yeah, and that's the thing. It's like sometimes, especially too, like if certain directors haven't come up with a story reason of why something should exist. But then they kind of like told like, hey, make so much money, you gotta make it.
Or if it's a franchise, well, if you don't want to make it, we'll just give it to someone else who will. Like
Exactly.
For instance, like the original Star Wars was literally a story that he had to tell. It was no sequels. It was none of that. And that's to me, that's my favorite one. By the way, I enjoy it way more than Empire.
Yeah, it felt complete at the end. It felt complete.
It feels like
the world. So okay, that's good.
And it left itself open to more to go because that Vader just didn't die. He got like sent off. But like but not even the fact that it felt complete, but it felt like I have a story to tell. Let me tell it. Let me tell you the story of a boy that gets caught up in something big, and let me tell you this story. And I think that was part of the thing, where everything after that, even the prequels, where it's money. Like, oh, we need this character, and we need I don't know. And then like I'll give it one thing: the prequels at least do seem focused in telling a story, whereas the new sequel trilogies, I can't even describe what it is, but whatever. Very disappointing.
Yes, that's to say the least.
There was no way that when I first saw the first trailer for Force Awakens that it would end this bad. It's
disappointing. It doesn't really leave disappointing.
It's like I have no
you with any really impression except for
I don't ever want to watch it again. I don't I don't want to tell my kids about this. I don't even care.
The only thing I'm interested in seeing is seeing how 10 years from now how they're going to be looked upon. I'm sure things are going to change. I'm interested to see the kind of like how history treats this in the next couple of years or so, because usually things change a little bit. I know for the prequels, they didn't really change. They were pretty much
I want to see someone's like. It's kind of funny, but I would love to see someone just watch them in all out of order, but not like 4, 5, and 6. But I'd like to see someone who hasn't watched any Star Wars watch 7, 8, and 9, and what do they think of like, because we come in with all these expectations and past.
It's hard not to do that.
Like you're looking for something familiar. I'm looking for something new, or whatever. Like, and I think like, what about because I was gonna say before, like, there was a game reviewer who was doing a podcast, and he talked about how much he liked Mario Sunshine, but that he thought it was way better than Mario 64. And most people will disagree, right? A lot of people say Mario 64 is better than Sunshine. But he said he said part of it he thinks is because that was his first 3D Mario, and sometimes that impact of it being the first thing you've seen and enjoyed, right? Which is nostalgia, right? I guess, or whatever. But no, it's not necessarily nostalgia. It's just that
think about it. The Sunshine builds upon the building blocks of whatever Super Mario 64 did. So
Right.
sometimes when you go back, it's not always necessarily, you know, great all the time. You
But
know what I mean? Like
I
the impact, like for example, for a lot of people, especially art, Star Wars is one of the first sci-fi things they've seen. So when it comes to like lasers and weapons and things like that, a lot of people associate that with Star Wars. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't grow up with Star Wars. I didn't see Star Wars
I know
at
you
all.
waited till like way later.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that just kind of passed me by. Like I didn't have a VCR, until I was like, a little grown, and even then, when we had a VCR, it was just a random bunch of VHS tapes or whatever like that. It wasn't anything like, oh, we need the Star Wars because it's a good movie. We need this as a good movie. It's what was ever on sale at Dwayne Reed or something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I wasn't getting like, I wasn't like picking and choosing, and I didn't have cable either. Like I didn't have cable, and even the time I was a kid, like the first time I even saw Star Wars, like some of it, I even watched the whole thing, was when I was 9, and they finally brought it on TV, on like broadcast television, which was a big deal, like Star Wars. And I watched like maybe the first couple of minutes of it, and then I ended up like not. I guess I didn't finish watching it because I had homework to do, and I never watched it since until recently, like 2 3 years ago, when I maybe more than that now, when I was watching, like, getting ready for the Force Awakens. So it's still very new to me. It's not like something I'm watching and growing up with and everything. So I don't have that, like, that strong nostalgia that a lot of people have. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but watching it and liking it, because I know I do like it. I felt like I could understand from my perspective. Like I kind of grew to understand like what I like about it and what it tries to achieve. Like even though they can never escape some of the time they were made. Like Star Wars was made in the 70s because there's certain things, the way characters act and move is just of the era. But I feel like all the movies try to be as timeless as they can. I mean, if you kind of ignore like the special editions and the special effects or whatever, whatnot. But in terms of like the structure in itself, they try to be timeless stories that don't really have a defined period of time or attitudes. It's like this kind of like this new age kind of feel, kind of like I wouldn't say like Star Trek, like how Star Trek is like next level of civilization or whatever. They try to
The,
it tries to be timeless where
the thinking
certain things
man's
don't matter
the
anymore.
thinking man Star Wars.
Yeah, like this is more about society. I mean, it's more about society as a whole
And
and where they're
laws
at. Like
and yeah.
law, like they know now humans just live to do things like explore because now they have the ability to, like certain things like that. Like it tries to create a story that doesn't rely too much on certain things. I mean, you're always gonna have the typical tropes that you run into, like with that society has, like money, things like that, because you have to relate to it in some kind of way. you know and no matter what you do, there's always things that's going to be relatable,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how sci-fi you try to be, or whatever. It's always going to come down still into something that we as people go through every day. Well, whatever. Star Wars is
It's
a
very
cool franchise,
disappointing.
but it's very disappointing, and can't wait for the next trilogy.
I mean,
The, the one, the
I
one,
can't
mhm.
either because I think at least it'll be something fresh, and that's what I'm
Yeah,
kind
and
of.
I feel like too they're kind of going to kind of like go back to the drawing board, and I'm excited to see what they do. I really want to see good stuff. I like to see good. I like to see good things. I don't want to. I'm not here. I don't want to see the franchise go
Yeah,
down or
you don't
whatever
want to
like
see
that.
dumpster fires because you need to make a
Yeah,
video about it,
I
and you
I'd
gotta.
rather have more. I'd rather have more entertainment than bad. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times you're wasting your time when you're watching bad stuff. That's a waste of time at the end of the day. I'd rather watch something, feel good about it, and get some
Yeah,
good
at least
back to
enjoy
me.
it. Point is to go and enjoy it, and
Yeah,
then
and at the bare minimum, it doesn't have to be the best movie ever, but I can enjoy it. I can
yeah,
be like, okay, it was good.
yeah, which is
Like for
something.
example, I saw Jumanji. I had low for that movie. And
Uh,
I saw that movie. I was like, oh wow, I was pleasantly surprised and I was happy. You know,
yeah, I can't relate because I didn't see it, but I know that. Yeah, I just walked out of. Like I said before, this like I didn't hate the Last Jedi like everyone, so I walked out of that movie fine, and I walked out of The Force Awakens a little bit. Actually, was a little disappointed because how much The Force Awakens reminded me of A New Hope. But I guess I liked how weird Last Jedi was, and this one was so disappointing. I just was so like there was just a bunch of oh shit moments, and I'm like, why? How is this a thing now? Why did this happen? But anyway, so I'm gonna close this out because we're close to 2 hours here.
All right. See, 2 hours for 2020. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, we still need like 7 minutes to get there, but I don't feel like talking.
All right, so let's talk about something else.
No, Bad Boys 3 was good.
Yeah, so you know, Bad Boys 3 was great. I actually, it's my favorite movie of the franchise.
Yeah, I think
I felt indifferent about the franchise before that. Like
that's exactly how I felt. I felt like
I know a lot of people like how old it did to their heart. Like, oh my god, it's so great. I saw part one; it was alright.
The first one's a fun, stupid movie. The second one's really bad.
Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, you can't go wrong with those actors. Make anything.
Well, I think the second one's really bad, actually. Like,
oh, I hated the second one.
The second one's so long. I never like it's long, and it's like.
I felt the same way. I saw that movie.
I saw it in the theaters. I saw it in the theaters,
and I saw it in the theaters. I'm just like, yo, this movie's still going on.
Like when they went to Cuba, I was like, wait, this movie. Oh, and I said,
oh yeah, Brazil. That was the thing. I was like, I thought this movie's over. It's another part. I was exhausted,
and I was literally like, okay, I don't even care anymore. I really
I think Michael Bay is like the first director, or whatever he is, the first director to make me realize that I don't.
You don't need to see.
I don't need to see it.
You don't need to see explosions and witty banter in between all the time. To
it's not even that. Like, don't make it that long. Like, condense it. Like, learn how to edit 2 hours, because like he did the same thing in Transformers. I think Part 3 or whatever like that. What is it? Dark of the Moon or whatever is like that. I don't know.
Any of the Transformers, they're all bad.
I would say I didn't see Part 2 yet. I know you. You were starting with that movie. God. I know. Thanks to you, I didn't go watch it, but I remember watching Part 3.
Optimus Prime Heaven. That's all you need to know.
I remember watching Part 3, and then they're inside the building, and I'm like, "Yo, this action movie, this scene is way too long. Like, what is going on?" And I think, those two, like Bad Boys 2 and that Transformers movie, made me realize that there's an art to condensity. You could say more of less, and I think,
make a movie. A movie should be no longer than 2 hours to me. Like,
I think if it's a special occasion, maybe 2 hours and a half. Like, Adventures, I can kind of understand a little bit.
I hated it. I did not like the last. Like, I'm thinking back to Endgame or whatever. Mm-hmm. Boy, they could have cut out about an hour of that movie, and it would have been much better to me. Because the ending part was like, that's what I was there to see. I know, like I knew the guys are gonna come back. I didn't need to see all this mopey mope. Like, I just needed to see the whole plan and how it was gonna go down. Exactly. I just felt like
we were there for the action.
Yeah,
the action was kind of a mess. All it is like see.
But it was a cool mess. It was like
it was cool. I'm not gonna say it wasn't. I love that scene when he says, Avengers. Like that scene, I love it. Like, don't get me wrong.
It's like Scorsese says. He's like, what did he say? All these movies are just like roller coaster rides. They're like no substance, and I don't agree with him completely.
No, I wouldn't say that. I think
but I do know. I kind of know what he's saying though. There's a lack of. Let me not say a lack of creativity, but because the one thing you got to give the whole Marvel franchise is that they pulled it off. They pulled off somehow. I mean, you don't have to watch every movie, but they pulled off an intriguing franchise of 20-something movies that you want to see how, like a whole bigger saga. They pulled it off, which nobody tried that really before. Mm-hmm. To that scale, and they've tried it. Like a million other studios have tried it since and failed miserably the entire way. And I just think it's kind of cool that oh my god, you watch little tidbits of this movie and connect it to this movie, and but these movies themselves, they stand on their own. They don't necessarily need, except for the Avengers movies, do not stand on their own. They need especially the last two, but I don't know. Now we're running on 2 hours.
All right. You know what? Let's cut this short. So
because we're running longer than the movies we're talking about.
Well, I'll
not all of them.
About Part 3, Bad Boys for Life.
Yeah.
One thing I liked about it was that it kind of like cut a lot of like the Michael Bayisms out of it.
Yeah, because Michael
like,
Bay didn't direct it.
Exactly. And I think like it became a more cohesive and focused movie. Like I saw part 2 the other day, and it reminded me why I hated it so much, because there was so much like
junk
bloat to it, and all these scenes, like the scenes where Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. I'm not gonna call because they're just pretty much Will Smith and Martin Lawrence.
Marcus Lowry.
I mean
Mike Lowry.
Mike Lowry and Marcus
Burnett.
Come on, they're Will Smith and Martin Lawrence.
Okay.
Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Like when they were in, and they were recording them, and they were saying like very
the sex thing, yeah.
And it was just like, oh,
because that's Michael Bay. That's his his movies feature girls with boobs and things like there's a lot of gratuitous sexuality in his movies.
But you would think these movies are made by like a 14-year-old.
They are, because it's a guy that he knows how to do his action scenes a little bit. But here's the thing I'll take about Bad Boys 3 that I liked is that I liked that it dealt more with the relationships of the characters with each other. And so to me, even though I didn't think like they were gonna die, I felt like I cared about what I felt like I cared about what happened to them during like this. Like it focused more on them dealing with each other's shit instead of just them dealing with the next drug lord to bust. Like there was a villain in the story, and that twist is really kind of stupid. But at the same time, it still brings in characters, that like it just brought to me like these. I felt more of a connection with these two characters being buddies than I did in the first two movies, where they were put in situations and like, but nothing felt real. This movie felt. Let me not say
felt
real.
Like a whole bunch of quips, like, "Oh damn,
yeah,
man,
oh damn,
man, I'm getting you, man. F this."
Like, this one felt like, you really got the feeling of, this one's in love, this one loves, the family. Like they had the family life before with certain things, but it felt like it just wasn't in the movie to waste time. It felt like it dealt with elements in the story, and like they weren't just there, and I think this one dives into their characters the most.
You know what? One thing I like about the movie is that when I was watching it, you dealt with like the real life circumstances. Like they realize they're getting older. They have things to do. And one of my favorite quotes in the movie was when Martin Lawrence said, "We have more time behind us than we have in front of us."
Right.
And that's like, especially at my age, like, you think about that, it's like, wow. When you really think about it, it's like it makes you realize the fragility of your life, like how quickly like it goes by, and at one point you're gonna have more years behind you. Kind of reiterate what he said, more years behind you than you have in front of you. And it was kind of very powerful how he's looking at it and he's making you think. And then you have one man who's looking at it this way, and then you have Will Smith thinking that he can do this forever, or he's going to do it forever as long as he lives until he can't do it anymore.
I'm gonna do this till I'm 100. That's what he said.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very interesting to see that dynamic. And I will say this: Martin Lawrence, I don't know if he's acted in anything in a while. I've heard that he didn't, but he pulled an amazing scene that made me really feel for his character. Like, I'm not gonna spoil it because I guess it's not the kind of podcast spoil or anything. I don't know.
Yeah,
everyone cares, but like it felt like when he was talking to Will Smith and arguing when they were having these arguments, and he said one thing like, "Don't you dare say that about me because I did this for you," and I really felt that. I really felt his pain, his hurt, and how he stood there for a friend. Like I felt the friendship felt real. It didn't feel like a buddy cop movie. It felt like
and that's the thing too.
Talking.
And I think this movie let them deal like every other movie was like, oh man, they kidnapped someone. Now it got real. But this one was actually like they lost something. That big. There was a thing that happens in the middle. And to me, that was the first kind of real consequence I ever felt these characters really had to go through. There was that never happened in any other movies. If you think about it, like
Yeah.
There was nothing seriously, But anyway, let's call it quits because we're at 2 hours and 3 minutes.
You know what? I also want to talk about.
Nope, I'm ending it. Yeah. This is the ABG. Sterling is signing out, and Steve.
I'm signing out as well. Thank you for listening. Have a great 2020, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
All right.